Okay, how you doing? Mark Ashmore here again, talking about dyslexia and the creative mindset. This is video number 2. It's been a really interesting week, really. I launched the project last week, so 7 days ago, and the first video on Facebook has been seen like over sort of 6,000 times, and we're beginning to have conversations on Twitter. The video from your comments and everyone that's watching this on the Facebook page, we've had hundreds of comments. I've had so many different stories have been shared with me about your sort of dyslexia stories. It's actually been quite an emotional week, listening to everything that you guys have been sort of saying out there and the journeys. And I guess what I'm trying to do in this video, which I'm going to try and keep short to around 5 minutes, is I'm going to sort of tell you a little bit more about my dyslexia journey. We're going to sort of do the educational years, because I know that some of you out there are parents and that you've been showing these videos to your kids who are kind of around the ages of 8 to 12, 13, and obviously you've been sharing it with other older kids, but I'm going to sort of concentrate on that section especially for them, so bear with me. We're going to do this all in one long edit as well, so there'll be no cuts in there, so we'll get through this, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 4 stages that I think I've identified by listening to your stories, which I think that's what I'm going to turn into the film, which will be an animation, so I'll explain that part. That'll be part 2 of this little talk, and then part 3 will be the sort of actions that I want you to take and where I think we can kind of take this. So a little bit more about me and my educational journey. So when I was studying for my GCSEs and we came up towards the tests towards the end, I knew that I didn't really have the focus for all the subjects that you take in the UK. We take 8 or 9 different GCSEs, and so I wanted to go on to do my A-levels, because at that point I wasn't doing drama or film or anything like that, but they did it at A-level at our school. And also another thing about our town that we come from, I just went to sort of a bog standard secondary school, so there was no sort of, looking back on it, we probably had a few kids with sort of special needs and stuff like that, but they were just put in, I guess, normal average classes, and they didn't really have the staff to sort of look after them. So looking back in retrospective and my own journey of working in education, I could see that there's a lot of issues there. So I sort of found my own skills and my own way of dealing with it and getting through and trying to learn. But when it came to GCSEs and to revision, I decided that I needed 5 GCSE passes to get into A-level, which would be in my 6th form at the same school. Not very adventurous, but there you go. And I would focus on 5 subjects, and that's all I'd revise for. So I'd put all the bets on that I could revise for 5 out of the 9. So get rid of 4 that weren't my strengths and focus on my strengths. To do this, the way that I taught myself was I watched a lot of documentaries and films on certain subjects. So I was taking history, which is basically remembering a date, a time when it took place, and then telling a story about what happened at that time. And being a storyteller, I guess that plays into my strengths. The way that I learned history was using post-it notes in the kitchen of our house. I would take a post-it note, stick it on the cupboard where I get my breakfast cereal from, or on the fridge, and there'd just be 1 or 2 words there, and those 2 words would trigger in my head an entire sort of memory or a film scene, and that's what then I would have to write down in the exam. So that's kind of how I taught myself, through post-it notes around the kitchen. And of course, if you go into the kitchen and to the bathroom where the toothpaste was, and you do that every single day, those post-it notes are going to stick with you. I then cheated a little bit as well, because you were allowed to take pencil cases into the exam for the GCSEs. So confession time is that I wrote a couple of keywords secretly on my pencil case, which had loads of writing on it, so you could sort of hide keywords in there for the history exam, and that would trigger a story, and then I would be able to document that down, because your teachers pretty much tell you what you're going to have to write, you just need to remember the stories. So that's how I guess got through history. English was creative writing, which, although my handwriting is very poor and my grammar and spelling awful, I have an imagination, so I can make up stories pretty quickly, improvise on the fly. And yeah, so to cut a long story short, I didn't get the 5 GCSEs that I needed to get into A level. I only got 4 passes, and you needed 5 passes to get into A level. And one of my so I managed to sort of convince the A level tutors. This was make or break. I convinced them that I would retake one of my GCSEs, which was in art, in the first year of my A level. So I actually had to retake a GCSE to get the passes that ticked the box that allowed me to progress my education. When I was in A level, the way that we were taught, again, with the teacher at the front of the class dictating to you, reading from books, copying things down, and I just sort of got bored a little bit, I guess. So 16 and 17 were years that my friends that I grew up with, that I'd grown up with maybe over 2 sets of schooling, had all left, and then it was just sort of me. Making new friends, making new alliances, and trying to struggle by and keep interested. I had this 2 years ahead of me that I was at the same school with pretty much the same teachers, the same environment. It was not pushing me in any way, I guess. So to cut a long story short there, I wanted to go to university at this point, but basically to get out of the town that I was living in and also pursue film and drama, to become a film director, because that's what I wanted to do. But I got a C, a D and an E in A level, and universities don't really pick you up on those things. So that was the sort of end of my education for a bit. I decided to have a year out, go travelling. I worked in a bar in Ibiza, partied a bit, met new friends and got this sort of travel bug. And it was then at 19 that I read pretty much my first book cover to cover, and it was Steven Spielberg's autobiography. And that really inspired me that I needed to get back to England, I needed to enroll in college, and I needed to do a practically based course that would push me as a visual communicator, as a visual storyteller. So I did a BTEC, which is a very practically based thing, which is the same level as A levels. So I didn't move up a year, I just sort of redid 2 years of education. So I went and did a BTEC in media performance at Mansfield at West Notts College. And that was just groundbreaking. I was just, I was in a new environment, I was new with people, and I was doing something that I was passionate about, which was making films. And I would stay behind at the end of class. I was the first to arrive. I was a little bit older than all the other students, so it meant that, I had the stories of travelling and failing my A levels, and so I really pushed myself, and it gave me confidence in what I could do. And anyway, at the end of the A levels, I managed to get a distinction. So from being a failure in A levels to getting a distinction in BTEC in media, really set up for the rest of my university career. I managed to then get into university. But I'm going to keep this section short. I'll talk about the university years and getting diagnosed with dyslexia, because I hadn't been diagnosed up to this point. I just was creating my own coping mechanisms, my own structures. I'll talk about that in the next video, because what I want to talk about is how you guys have all inspired me, because I've been reading everything that you've sent me. Probably 400 comments, emails so far. And so I want to talk about this structure, what I've kind of learned. I'm just looking at my notes here. So I think I'm going to break it down in what this film could be, is into 4 parts. We have sort of from the age of 7 to 12-year-olds, when children are being first diagnosed. And for them, if they're being diagnosed and they have, I guess, I always imagine it, somebody in a white coat telling you that, little Johnny, you've got dyslexia, and little Johnny is not going to know what that means. So that's just going to be a shock to them. And so I need to be able to tell that part of the story. So if little Johnny is watching the film that we're going to make, it can inspire them and go, whoa, okay, there's this thing, but it doesn't mean I'm any different. In fact, it's a gift, and I can utilize it, and my God, I'm going to be so good at these things over here. And I think that's the first part of the film. or a stage that we need to cover. And then the second stage is when the parents hear that little Johnny has got dyslexia, and they're like, oh my god, have I failed as a parent? Oh my god, how am I gonna figure this out? Oh my god, are they gonna go to the right school? Are they gonna have friends? Are they gonna go to learn? Are they gonna end up on drugs later on in life? Like, you know, if they can't read or write properly. So I think stage 2 needs to help the parents somehow and tell them, look, no, it's gonna be okay. It's, you know, look at some of the famous people that have, you know, look at Albert Einstein, look at Jamie Oliver, look at Richard Branson, and look at all these people, Steven Spielberg, that have got dyslexia, and look what they've gone and done. But, you know, we might need to look at how they're going to learn and stuff, and what support they're going to need. And I guess stage 3 leads us into the support that they're going to need, which is to educate or inform, in a way, educators and teachers and practitioners who work with children, and to look for the signs and also how to help them. Now, I'm not a specialist in that area. I don't really understand that. That's not my point of view. So for the film, we'll have to bring in some experts to help out. And I know that there are people watching this that are experts, so please email me, and let's talk about how we can do that. And then the fourth stage, I think what I've highlighted is, I'm going to say sort of like the older generation. I'm 36 and wasn't diagnosed until I was 23. So there's a generation before me that probably were never diagnosed, and I've heard your stories of how you were made to stand in the corner of a classroom, almost wearing the dunce's hat, being called stupid by your teachers and your peers, and oh my god, how that must have made you feel, being bullied for something that you didn't understand. Just sad, really, isn't it? And I've heard those stories. So for people in the 40s and 50s and beyond that didn't get the chance to shine, I need to address that in the film, that we've come on a long way. We have digital and science and laptops and different ways that we can communicate, and I want to address that in this film, that to address the rebalance somehow. The storytelling needs to be universal as well, so I'm going to choose animation to put the film across. So it's going to be an animated story. It's going to be told simply, but not a simple story, if that makes sense. And the way that I want to produce it as well is through crowdsourcing, which is sourcing stories from you guys and putting them into the project. And so that's why I'm reading everything for the script. I'm analysing and figuring out, and that's how I came to those 4 stages. So it was from you. I've not had any preconceived ideas of how to make this animated film. I just know now it needs to be animated, because we're dealing with people that are in America, in Australia, in Kenya, in North Africa, across Europe, in England, up and down England. It's global. This film is going out to global people, so it needs to not be in English, but told through simple visual motifs. It needs to not be in a specific language. It needs to reach out to people all around the world. So it needs to be understood so it can be used as a tool for inspiration and creativity and education. So I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm going to be watching a lot of Charlie Chaplin films, and the opening 20 minutes of Up and WALL-E by Pixar are very, very good as well. So non-verbal communication will be something I'll be researching. So if you have any hints and tips on that, please send along and put it in the comments below. So I guess we've covered quite a lot of ground there for a second video. So actions that I want you guys to do are to continue to share the first video and then this one as well on Twitter, on Facebook, and to get people here to sort of tell the stories. I'm a big believer in, if you tell 5 people that this thing exists, that this idea exists, that it makes us all stronger. So there are 100 people now in our Facebook group. If we all told 5 people, that would be 500 people. That would be 500 different stories. That would be people all around the world. There would be more connections on the network. So when we give the film away for free, it'll go to more people. That's the only way we're going to be able to do this. We don't have big money or anything like that to make this project happen. And that's another thing I need to address as well, is I'm going to look at grants to try and make this project work. So the more stories that you tell me, the more I can sort of print them out and make a big sort of case for doing this. I can prove that it's going to be worthwhile, because there's gatekeepers to the money and there's gatekeepers to even believing that this is an issue. We know it is, because we're all living through it. So tell 5 people. Why 5 people? Because the Beatles were originally founded by 5 members. Stuart Sutcliffe was the 5th Beatle. So yeah, go out there, tell 5 people, keep telling me your comments, keep inspiring me, keep telling me your stories. And an important thing as well is, if you really want to continue hearing about this journey, because on Facebook I can only message about 30 people a day before it kicks me off and thinks I'm spamming, email me at faprojects17@gmail.com. That's faprojects17@gmail.com. What I'm doing is I'm putting everybody into a list, and then when I do a video, so I'll do like an update video maybe once a week or once every fortnight if it's relevant, and then I will send it to everyone that's emailed me, so you'll get to watch it, and then you can share it into forums and onto newsletters and with your peers, and get this message out that we're making this really cool thing. And it might become a movement, it might become something, or it might be something only 1,000 people watch. But if we get 1,000 people, or even the 100 that are on Facebook now, if you can be inspired by this, and if it changes your life in any way, then that's awesome, really, isn't it? Because it's just me sort of talking about an idea that I've got to spend the next 2 years or more of my life making for everybody. So if you commit to me, I'll commit to you, and we'll make this thing happen. So thank you very much for watching. It's been an emotional first week, but yeah, keep sticking with, and yeah, that's basically my story. I think this video went on a bit too long, but thank you very much. Bye.